Hello, my name is Chris Mims, and you are listening to Dope. Today, my guest is someone I actually share a familial bond with. My guest this week is Chrxstal Sarah Mims. Chrxstal Sarah, aka DJ Siren, aka what are all of your AKAs? Go ahead and just
honestly, Chrxstal Sarah is my artist name. I'm a singer-songwriter. And I used to DJ in college. DJ Siren was my name for that. Whenever I perform, I call myself your local siren. Just, local girl singing. But yeah.
Is that the same for your handles when you do sound baths and stuff? Or are you just it's just Chrxstal Mims?
That's kind of different too. That's
see what I'm saying?
Or that's crystal clear healing.
Okay.
Nice.
So aka Crystal Clear.
Yeah.
Got you.
Exactly.
Okay. So you're another creative. It's taken a minute for us to I always have to do an anecdote about how long it took for us to actually record this. So I had my friend Paul on, and it took forever for us to actually record our episode. And today we had a whole thing where we've just been setting up for the last 2 hours. But we're finally here. I'm coming down from the antsiness of production because I'm actually very excited to talk to you about yourself creatively, because obviously we grew up together. We don't come from a broken home. We grew up together. But we don't, I feel like we come from a troupe of 3, and all of us have very I think interesting creative paths, if that makes sense.
That's true.
None of us have been the traditional stereotypical, I think, all of a sudden one of us got moody and started doing
very true
art and
rebellious or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, not in an extroverted sense. I think we all kind of did, but we all kind of internalized it, and that shot out in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But none of us, I think, have ever we've talked about our creativity, but never why are you doing that? You know what I mean? Exactly. Outside of, I think, you, which is relatively a little more straightforward because obviously our mom sung. And so when she was oh, my daughter can sing, it was
Church
okay.
choir.
Yeah, now Chrxstal's singing.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I guess one of the things that I'm curious about, and in terms of origin or whatever, is when is there a difference between that point when you were okay, I know I like singing, but also my parents are putting me out there because I need this experience, versus what it feels like now to be a singer? What's I think the biggest difference for you from a sense of perspective as a singer when you were singing as a kid, and now you're still singing now and it's your own thing? Is there a difference, or has it always been, does it feel like one continuous path, or was there a point where you were okay, I think I'm singing for me now and that's what this feels like?
Yeah, I think mom was pretty helpful, and I guess a way that she maybe is unaware of now, because I think at a young age I always assumed I was dead set on being on Disney Channel. I was I'm gonna be a Disney star.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna be Hannah Montana. This is happening. I was I'm not even gonna go to college because I'm gonna be so famous.
Oh wow!
I'm be so famous.
I didn't know this. I knew you loved Disney and but I always thought it was well, they're feeding her a lot of Disney, so obviously she likes Disney.
Been a part of it, that was all Hilary Duff and Lizzie McGuire and all of that. But once I saw that as okay, this could happen for me, But then for whatever reason, I was pretty shy as far as I didn't want to really be on this stage when it came time to do that. But, mom threw me in church choir. I was doing school choir, and I always enjoyed it. And so I think I kind of got over that hump. But I do think that I always thought I was going to be a singer. I kind of wanted to be a singer. And so it definitely felt okay, I'm doing all this stuff now, and then eventually I just didn't have any kind of idea of how I could even make that happen for myself, really. So I think it was just like, okay, I'm in choir, and then now I'm in guitar lessons and piano lessons and all of that. And I think maybe there was a bit of a switch when I got to college and could kind of see people pursuing it and what that could look like for me. But yeah, I think it has kind of all in all felt like one continuous path. It kind of just shifted into like, okay, how do I actualize this? Like, how do I make it happen? But yeah, I think I definitely had.
You had a vision. You had a vision.
Big dreams back then, man. Yeah.
Okay, this is starting to. I mean, I never got that from you. I mean, I knew you liked to sing growing up, and I knew that was something that like you liked to do, and that mom and dad liked you doing because they were always recording your stuff, and like you were singing around the house and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, even as a kid, I kind of had the perspective like, well, your parents make you try different things to see like what you're good at. So I never, there were definitely some things I pushed back on as a kid, like, oh, I don't feel like doing this. You know what I mean? Yeah. But overall, I got it. It's like, okay, let me give it a shot. Let me see, yada, yada. But yours was definitely singing. The Disney star thing, like, oh, I'm going to be on it, get my own Disney show, is I don't know. It feels a little surprising to me. I don't know. It makes sense now that I know. But was that one of the reasons why you got along with Malia so well? Is that something that you guys confided in each other? Because Malia was definitely like about that life, especially when you guys were in middle school and stuff like that.
She had her own like web show, I remember.
Yeah.
Not really, honestly. I think I'm not even sure what exactly. Again, I don't know if it was being so young. I just didn't really know what went into it. But I think I definitely was just kind of like enamored with like, the whole Hannah Montana, like that idea of like, oh, these are kids and they're like singing and they've got shows and they're having fun. And it was just like, I think mom knew that too. She was like, okay, like this is something she likes. Like,
yeah. If she likes it at least a little bit, then it's not exploitative.
Right. Exactly. I do think I just kind of struggled with, again, like I was pretty shy. It's funny watching the home videos and stuff because like I feel like when I was like 2, 3, 4, I was like really mouthing off all the time. Like there's a lot of videos of me just really wilding out. But then I don't know what happened. Even like father-daughter prom stuff, like I didn't want anyone to look at me. When mom would have me singing in the mall for whatever reason, like I was so like just I didn't want to do that kind of stuff. And even, there was definitely like a bit of a disconnect. But even when you mentioned kind of like internalizing most of those things, I think I just kind of couldn't really, I wasn't as outspoken or loud or whatever as I wanted to be. And that's something that I kind of just like envisioned for myself though, in a weird way. So like, it was just about, I don't know, just like that learning curve. That's why it was good. I think I was kind of thrown into those conservatories and stuff because I had to
right, the conservatory.
Yeah, like if you want to do this, like this is what it looks like, you know? You can't just really be dreaming about it, you know? So not just going to hand you a show. So yeah, I think it was good that I did that and then could kind of like, you know, shape my career in the way that I wanted to later on. You know?
That's really interesting because I feel like there is this theme with all three of us, and Chrxstal being definitely the most practical, but there is this theme of kind of like this introverted creativity that I think all three of us have. Like, I don't think that any of us are really performers like that. Like, I know I'm like hosting a podcast right now, but like, this isn't some spur of the moment thing. Like, I've been thinking about this for a while, and it's part of like a grander thing. And like, this is just like a necessary step almost for me, rather than like, hey, everybody, look at like all this cool stuff I have and all this cool stuff I have to say. Like, for me, I hope that there is that there and that someone can connect to that. But for me, it is larger than just that. It's like this piece of the puzzle that is performative is actually part of like a larger creative goal and a larger creative piece of expression that is like beyond if people like the way that I look on this podcast right now or how my voice sounds. It's like, well, this is all part of like a process and me like figuring out what my next project is or trying to build something overall. And like, maybe that it's just a little different with singing because that is such a like, here, stand on stage and like do this thing. Right. And there is like an inherent disconnect from like well, why don't I want to be on stage and like perform on the spot? And
exactly.
you know what I mean? But I do want to sing. I do want to express myself.
Gathering, Mom.
Yeah.
Just be singing like, okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going back to the back now. Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, that's honestly what scares me a bit about where the industry is going, only because now that sounds great. Like if I could just get on stage, give it my all for like an hour and then go home and just be like working on music or like building to another project. Great. But now it's kind of like we're being asked to kind of show every aspect of our process and our lives and just be like on all the time. I'm like, man, that's
do you think that that's the move? Like I know some people find or probably are finding success doing that, but do you think that's the move? Do you think that you could actually, if someone actually peered into your life right now, you start making all this content, do you think that would for your lifestyle, do you think that would work?
No, I don't think so. And that's why a big part of what even this period of my life has been is just finding out what really works for me, regardless of what we're kind of being told should be working for us right now. Only because, and it's like cliche, I guess, but like if it doesn't work for you, it's just not going to work for you. And like, no matter if it seems like that's the formula right now, like you're supposed to be posting 5 TikToks a day or like stuff like that. If it doesn't feel natural to who you are as an artist, it's just going to come across as like weird or try hard or just not even, it just won't work. So that's why I'm like, okay, just take a step back, like focus on the music. I think there are fun ways to, now that I've kind of gotten out of my head about it, because I think I was just thinking about it way too much. Like, okay, I need to like last year, I don't know, I had songs coming out and I'm doing these little dances in front of, I'm like, I can't even do this. Like my mind won't allow me to do this. Like I'm these little dances and stuff. And just, I was like, this is rough. So now that I'm kind of like past that part of it, I'm like, okay, there are certain things I can do. If I'm in the studio, like making sure I'm really like grabbing some video of that, or, just, everyone kind of likes all my wellness and spirituality stuff. So I'll just be going on rants about that. And like, that's something I'm genuinely interested in talking about. So, just not overthinking it. I think, like my friends, like to me, I'm like, no one wants to like see me in the car, like just singing or whatever. My friends are like, people actually do like want to see that kind of stuff. So sometimes I'm in the car and I'll just like prop my phone up and I'll just be wailing on the freeway, and then that's a TikTok, so certain things like that, just not overthinking it. But yeah, we're in an interesting spot right now. I'm like interested, to just see how it goes. And
I mean, do you think in general the internet asks too much of independent artists? Like, I know that like you're finding the fun in like having that consistency. Like, oh, okay, I'm hitting these platforms. It doesn't look like a TikTok dance. Maybe it looks like something else. Yeah. But do you think that in general that is too much? Just like doing the most? Like, is there a part of you that's like, it should just be about the music, or is that like just the modern day version of like doing a PR run? Yeah.
I think I'll always have to hammer down on like, we should just be focusing on the music. Like all this other stuff is kind of just noise. And like, and one thing I do think is that, everything kind of like goes around in cycles, and that I think we'll hit a point where like people are like, man, this is lame. This person out here every day dancing or doing da-da-da. And, the next generation might want to go back to what we kind of knew before, like the more mysterious, like, oh, they're just so cool and this is like a star and da-da-da, So I think it's kind of inevitable for things to kind of go around like that. But yeah, I do think that unfortunately, especially if you're independent, I mean, like the amount of just things you have to do on your own to add on kind of like constantly like filming yourself doing stuff or thinking about what to post on social media is just like way too much. I don't think that anyone who has a personality that is not super made for that kind of stuff would enjoy
like Frank Ocean ain't dancing up like
exactly.
Like and some people are just ain't built like that.
Yeah. And I think again, the way his career kind of went and took off, like The Weeknd, her when she first started, like the whole mysterious, like, who even is this? Like, we just really love this music was really cool and like a fun way of getting to know the artist and the sound. And I'm hoping that kind of stuff comes back around. But yeah, I do think we're kind of being asked to do a bit too much right now, or at least feeling like if you do not do these things, like I remember hearing that the Spotify CEO was just kind of like, you can't really expect to take 2 years off or making an album or like a year off making an album. Like that's just not going to work now. And so I feel like more than anything is the anxiety that comes with if you're not putting out a song every month or something, like people are just going to forget about you unless you've reached like Frank Ocean status and take that time away. There's just, it's so oversaturated now that like if you're not kind of like pushing to get yourself out there all the time, then like you're failing. It's kind of like what people are being told. So
that's so interesting because I went to a convention in New York a couple weeks back, and it was for this this label. I don't know if you've heard of it, called United Masters, and it's like it's for independent artists, and all you have to do is essentially subscribe, and there's different levels of subscription, and they will, based on how much you pay. I don't know the exact business model, but this is kind of what my takeaway was. You subscribe, and depending on your tier of subscription, you get access to a certain amount of tools. But the goal is to largely give you the tools in order to link up with brands who might need a song for or be in a music library and all that kind of stuff. And you just kind of control where your music is placed, how much you want it placed, and you get, the maximum amount of money from it, which all sounds all good and well. And I'm not going to say any names, but there was a panel, and it was all these like managers up on a panel, and everyone at the convention are artists, so people who subscribe to a certain tier and like they get invited to this thing. And this lady was like, yeah, I don't know how to get like my music like around. I feel like I'm working really hard, but like I need people listening. And they had already spent like a good half hour talking about how like you need to be on TikTok, you need to engage, you need to be doing this, yada yada. And so this lady's like, I need this. And they're like, so how much do you post on like TikTok and socials and yada yada? She's like, I don't really do that. And she's not even, I didn't get a good look at her face, but she definitely wasn't like 22. You know what I mean? She was like in her 30s, probably like late 30s.
Okay.
So this is not her world necessarily.
Yeah.
And they're like, what you need to be doing, they just double down on that. You need to be like pushing this, pushing that, pushing this, to the point where someone like literally told her, like, if you don't feel like doing that, if you don't want this, or you don't want to do that, you should like reconsider being an artist. I was like,
gosh,
you haven't even heard her sing. Yeah, you have no idea what she even sounds like. Yeah. And that was kind of wild to me. Most of the conference was really good, but that part was like, y'all are like getting paid by TikTok or something. Because you can't be telling people not to pursue their dreams because they don't feel like posting on TikTok.
Yeah, but that's definitely the language around it. Like you'll talk to a lot of A&Rs or just like, I read a lot of articles about this stuff. I'm like always, trying to hear what people are saying about it. But I think that is the language around it. Kind of like either you want this or you don't. Like this is what you have to do now. And if you're not willing to do that, then clearly you don't care about music. Yeah. Like clearly you don't want to be in music.
And I think that maybe at one time was true when like the lanes were a lot smaller. And it's like, well, we only have space on the radio. We can print so many CDs. Yeah. If you want that slot, then you have to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, okay, I don't see any other way to do it, get it done. But I just feel like that mentality is so old, trying to apply it to a entire new matrix that it's like, well, I get what you mean by playing the meta. Like this is how it is, and so do the most effective tactics possible are available. But at the same time, like the meta is also breaking the meta. Like that's the meta right now. Is like, yeah, everyone does this. So who's doing the opposite? And it's so much easier to find people doing the opposite that it's like, just go find your opposite. Like there's tons of ways to do the opposite. Yeah. And look cool doing it instead of like, that same way. I also think that like, I don't mess with TikTok. I haven't made a TikTok yet. I probably will eventually. But I always think about like cultural milestones that we're all experiencing, and I think which ones are going to age the worst.
Mm-hmm.
What are those things that are cool right now? That's like, yo, in 5 years that's going to be whack.
Crazy.
In 10 years it's going to be whack.
Yeah.
In 50 years, it's going to look crazy. Mm-hmm. Crocs are definitely one of them. I think like in 50 years, people are going to be like looking at all their like aunt and uncles photos and be like, yo, y'all wore these? Like, yeah, it was cool. Yeah. Another thing I think is like TikTok. I think TikTok, like doing the dances and stuff is going to be a thing where like younger kids who are like 10 or 11 or whatever, they're going to go to like their aunt's like Thanksgiving party. And like all these like old 50-year-olds are like, remember when we used to do these TikTok dances? And we're like, yo, y'all are so old.
That looks crazy.
And I'm like, I don't think that's gonna last. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it just if you don't have fun. Like if you have fun, awesome. Yeah. But if it's not you and you're forcing yourself to do it because it's cool right now, like really take a look at it and be like, I know this is cool for them. Is this going to be cool for me in 50 years? Really
yeah.
And then maybe you'll take a step back and be like, maybe I should do me. And then at least I can justify it.
Yeah. That's true. Like I get on there and it's definitely one of those things where I don't spend a lot of time on the app. I do try to post when I can. It's a very jarring app. Like that's the best. Like it's just a lot going on. You can get thrown into a live or like anything going on this app that could have nothing to do with whatever you've liked or like followed. But yeah, it's like one of those things. If you're not on it, a lot of the stuff that's on there that you go and look at will just be like, what is this? Like I'm not even like I'm so I'm
so scared. I'm so scared.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I think it's all about just doing what works for you because, again, and kind of like you were saying about how before, it was a bit harder to break into certain things like getting on radio or just, like there were superstars and like people that were like the biggest and stuff like that. But now, there's just so many ways to it's so chaotic as far as what to do or the best route to take, and even people sitting on these panels, they're just like as lost, I feel like, right now. Like they don't know what to really tell their artists at this point. And I think there's definitely pros and cons to the way that it's going. I'm a little bit more hopeful now just because things are kind of so chaotic that they feel like they're just like crumbling, which is why like major labels are scared and they're like, trying to grab for.
I feel like they've been shaking in their boots. They've been shaking in their boots since like Napster happened in 2004 or whatever.
Just so many ways that I think people are just able, like if you wanted to put out a song tomorrow, you could, and it could just be on every streaming platform and like anyone in the world could listen to it. And, that makes the industry very oversaturated, but at the same time, it gives everyone like a fair shot. And unfortunately, we're getting like a bit of pushback on that right now. But I do think, there's just so many opportunities for you to create your own kind of ecosystem of right now. I feel like there might not be any big stars in the ways that we've seen them, like Adele and like Taylor Swift and Beyonce, just because it's so hard to get that reach and it's so hard to get everyone's attention. But there are so many cool, like little niche, like communities popping up of like you could go on Spotify right now and like see an artist with like millions of monthly listeners and have never heard of them before, but they're like selling out arenas and like doing their thing.
That was a big thing when I went to that convention. I was like, who are these people? Like, yo, these people are massive. Give it up for blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I've never heard of this person.
These people, like, who is this? Literally. And I think that's kind of cool. Like,
for sure.
Especially if you're able to like make a living and you've got these really dedicated supporters and they all love you and they're going to support you. Like, that's awesome. I think, if you're really in it for the right reasons or whatever feels the most, true to you and you just love the music, that should be, I mean, people still, I think, love the idea of like wanting to be a star and like a
of course.
Me, it was like Disney Channel. Like that was my global superstar, But I just think that's really cool. Like you could kind of, and there's so many other areas of the industry like that can be tapped into. I think for like my biggest thing is like, how do I make a living doing this? Like I can't be in an office. I can't like do these other things. I just, so like how can I make this a career for myself that's why getting into like sync licensing and like other areas where maybe I'm not, you know, like superstar status, but I can work on music every day. Like that's I've won. Like if I could do that, then I've won. And so that's where I'm at right now, just trying to like tap into all these other little things going on. And
no, I agree. And I'm largely, I think that the music industry has always been about a decade ahead of the film and media industry. As far as like, we're seeing a lot of the same patterns now that have already happened, like come and gone in music, as far as like Napster happened, and then all of the labels like they started suing everyone.
Yeah. AI is about to be crazy.
They started Oh, and you guys will be 10 years ahead of what AI can, like whatever. I'm always looking at the music industry as far as like, okay, how do I move in film and television? Because you guys had the big shakeup as far as distribution, like much earlier than us, because, you know, music, there's more music and also it's a smaller file size, so it's just easier to get it all online somewhere. And so it hit YouTube, like Napster happened, like all of a sudden, like the first like real algorithms were for music. It's like Pandora. I remember having that in middle school and like, hey, you like listening to Mos Def, have you heard of the Roots? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It was like very top level stuff, but it has become more intricate. And then like all of a sudden artists were like, I'm going to be independent. I don't need a label. I don't need this. I can, and equipment got cheaper, and now everyone's making mixtapes and Dat Piff happens and like all of this stuff. Like it breaks up music to the point where like, yeah, you have a Joey or a Chance the Rapper like, yeah, I can win a Grammy and I'm independent and all this kind of stuff. And now it happened with Netflix finally, almost 10 years later, where all of a sudden distribution exploded with YouTube and Netflix. And now like there's a way to get videos, like an unlimited amount of videos online. And soon there was an algorithm to curate it for you. If you like Saving Private Ryan, you might like Band of Brothers.
Exactly.
And now like distribution is blown up, and there's a lot of people making money in this industry without having to even touch Hollywood. You know, they can they can have a Patreon, they can, equipment is cheap, like they can do ad deals, they can do all this stuff. Now I think it will come to a point of, which is what they were just striking about, is like, where are the rights at? Like, which is like a music thing for a long time. Like, where are the rights? I worked on this show for like 3 years. And it's just off streaming now. Like,
I was like, oh my gosh.
It's crazy. So I think you guys have always been ahead, and I always look at like where that's going for how I move. And that's why I feel the same way, because now it's chaotic. Like Hollywood is in shambles. They also don't know how to like make movie stars the way that they used to. There's like only a handful, and they keep reusing. I mean, Denzel is like how old doing Equalizer 3? Like
pumping them out.
But people still want to see Denzel. Like if they just got another young black guy, it probably wouldn't unfortunately do as well, unless you're in that lane, unless you were lucky enough to be Michael B. Jordan or like you know, Lakeith Stanfield. There's just like people still want to see those old, they want to see Tom Cruise in Top Gun 3. You know, like these people are so old, and we can't let them go. And it's like the industry doesn't understand how to do it anymore. We can all kind of see it. And so I'm like, well, if it is this chaotic, then I can probably figure this out. That, you know, it's not like there are only X amount of screens in the country and that's the only way I can get a movie made. Like I can probably at least make money and work on this all the time. And I get that, instead of being forced to perform in the middle of a mall or forced to pitch, which I hate pitching. Like I can't stand it, but that's always been a thing. It's like, oh, we have to have a good pitch when you get in the room and they offer you a water. Like, are you ready for that moment? I'm like, no, and I probably never will be. Like, I don't want to do this. I just want to go and make my stuff. And when I walk into a room, I want to be like, oh, well, you made X, Y, and Z. So what do you want to do next? Not like, so sell me, sell me your dream and I'll let you know if I want it. And I just think those days are kind of gone for film, because it already has happened for music. So, I like to look at you guys as an example. But one thing that I think that you guys have that's much different than us is, like I said, a mass amount of like content. Like so many people can put things out. So what I have felt lately is that music in general is kind of in this like deconstructionist period where like everyone's just kind of like throwing everything in their music, unless they're very specifically like, no, I'm tackling this genre today and I'm going to do my best this genre type of music. Do you feel like that's true? Do you feel like when you're making music, you're in a lane, or are you like, I feel like this today, or this is my genre, so I'm going to try to do this to the best of its ability, or it's like, oh, I'm feeling 80s today. I might make one of these.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's where we are. Like genre in general is not really something I think people focus on too much if they're making music, especially like coming up. You know, or at least it's just something that like we'll let the press or, you know, whoever is rating the album or
some
song,
critic,
right, we'll
define
let them,
it,
you know, figure out what they want to call it. Because I feel like everyone is just kind of, it's funny even like talking about TikTok, how like TikTok music is kind of like a thing now. It's like songs that sound like they were made for TikTok. So I think genre, we're definitely mixing things up. Like everything's kind of blending into each other.
Have you ever seen one of those concerts real quick? Have you seen one of those concerts where, you know, it's always been a thing where you see an artist, they're performing and everyone's kind of cool. And then they do that one song that everyone's heard. Everyone's like, yeah. Have you seen those concerts where it's like, it's not even that anymore. It's like the 30 seconds everyone knows for TikTok. And then they just,
Steve Lacy, I was seeing a lot of footage go around, and I was like, oh man,
that's
I wonder how
crazy.
I'm sure he put his heart and soul into all this other music as well, you know. And people are that's the other man. Concert culture now is like, I'm not sure if I can go out to these festivals or shows like that anymore. I mean, people are playing games in the audience, like it's like.
I just think that it's wild, the attention span where it's like, first, okay, I get a song, like, sure, they played the hit on the radio so much that yes, collectively we all are excited for this one song. But for it to be reduced down to like the 10 seconds you always hear on TikTok, and then you're like, I know those songs, and then like
phones down.
It's
I know. It's definitely that's gotten interesting.
But anyway, continue about how you go about making music.
Yeah, I think genre-wise for me, I've never really been tied to genre. I definitely in the less now for the reasons we've been talking about, but in the beginning definitely felt the need to kind of like categorize what I was making. But I grew up listening to so many different things, and then I was definitely gravitated toward different sounds and genres as I got older. So I don't think I ever really felt the need to box myself in. For a lot of reasons, I thought maybe it would be smarter if I did, at least starting off, because I'm like, okay, I need people to kind of like know me for a certain sound, or like be able to place me somewhere. And that could still be a part of my problem, not gonna lie to you. I think that it might get better because of the way things are kind of like, you know, just very mixed up now as far as genre goes. But I think that when 2020 was the first time I landed a Spotify editorial playlist, which was at the time a really big deal. This was before, I think that year or maybe the year before, TikTok had kind of like, someone had just kind of blown up on TikTok, and that became the thing to focus on. But before it was Spotify editorials. If you made it like on Rap Caviar, obviously I wouldn't have, but like if you were a rapper and you made it on Rap Caviar, like that was like a celebration day. Like, you know, your homies would be like, yes, let's go. This is it. Like, you know, like we made it. Just because of the amount
I'm still like in the front page of Dat Piff.
Oh man.
I'm old.
But like just because of the amount of like A&Rs and labels that would kind of be like on those playlists to see like who's up next. You know, and the amount of listeners, like at the time I got like a huge influx of listeners, but then you're not really retaining them unless you come out with like a song the next week or whatever. And then also if it's not something that sounds super similar, it could also be kind of hard because now they're like, okay, we want this from you, you know? So I definitely have like thought about that a lot. I kind of just refer to like my friends and people that listen to my music for that kind of stuff. Like, who do you think I sound like? Or like, what kind of music do you think I'm making? Because it's just so, when you're the one doing it, it's just so hard to know if it's, you know? Because I'm not tied to like R&B or this or that, I just don't know. So.
You just like to be influenced as you're influenced,
right.
and then it becomes what it becomes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I think as well, getting into the sync licensing stuff is fun because I get to like explore with like different genres, and they'll give me a brief and I'm just like making like a pop punk song or like all these different, it's like fun to like, you know, really feel like I'm using my voice as an instrument, you know, that's really, really fun for me. Like, I don't want to be tied.
You grow a lot doing that too, more than when you're ready to do. I think there's sometimes in your creative career where you're like pissed about that kind of stuff. Like, that's not what I do. I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm on earth to be doing this kind of my album. Right. But when you're ready to accept, like, okay, I have this assignment, and like someone sees, you as an instrument for getting something done, and like wants your version of it, then it's like, okay, I'll knock out this one. I'll do something like this. I'll do something like that.
I definitely had definitely a view of like commercial music. Like, I'm trying to go like a commercial music, but but it's fun, and it's like it's a way for me to again like kind of see this as like my job, it's my work. Like this is what I would rather be doing more than anything else. So you know.
So talk about a little your creative journey as far as like ending up doing like sound bath therapy. Was that connected to music at all, or that's just like a totally different wave you were feeling?
I think maybe a little bit, but not in the ways that I probably realized in the beginning, only because I was in college, started getting very into like, I started going to my little new moon women's circles and like getting into astrology. It just like that whole spiritual wellness world. And sound baths were just like another part of that. I went to like a sound bath, and I was just kind of like... It
wasn't like you woke up one day, you heard a specific frequency and you were like, only this bowl can bring me back here.
No, it was like kind of... I definitely later, like I tried to incorporate the bowls into like my music and stuff like that. And I think possibly because I am so involved in music and I sing, like that was something that really drew me in more than maybe other like parts of that world. But I think it really just came from wanting to, like when I first started trying to meditate and things like that, it was like really hard for me like to just sit there and be like, okay, like now I'm just gonna be in this like completely and so like I bought a sound bowl. I would kind of just play that before I meditated. I wasn't always sure that I wanted to actually like be a sound bath practitioner or a sound healer, but it just kind of just happened. Like I started playing the bowls for like my women's circle I attend, and then like other people hearing about it, and then I went through a certification process. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I just kind of like now incorporate it into like the music.
I was gonna ask, does it feel performative at all? I know it has to be when you're like, I've seen you perform with the sound bowl, and that is performative. In part to, I assume, the healing aspect, but when you are doing it like just the sound bath, does it feel performative at all, or does it feel like its own session?
Definitely feels like its own session, only because that particular experience was a lot of people I hadn't seen. Well, Janae Aiko, who's like one of my favorite singers, she also plays sound bowls and things like that, and she's incorporated into her music and like live performances, but I haven't seen too many people doing it in that way. And a lot of sound healers like might not even make music or know much about theory. I think it's cool if you do know about theory, because that's like a whole other thing. But yeah, a lot of the times for sound baths, people are just like laying down. So I'm just like there. They're not even looking at me, you know, I'm just kind of playing the bowls. They're like sleeping or whatever they're doing, you know. So it doesn't really feel like a performance, but I do think that in future shows, I'll try to incorporate them in some ways. But yeah, it feels like a separate thing though, for the most part. Got you. Yeah.
Say you reach the level of, I don't know, I guess the combination of money and stardom, that word is like clout now. If you reach the level of clout that you want to be at and you're fully doing music, how much of your time do you think you would dedicate to doing the crystal clear stuff?
Yeah. I think I would still definitely try to prioritize it. I think that part of my life is definitely like taking off in a way that I didn't really expect. Like now, like for the past 2 or 3 months, I've been doing like pretty consistent sound bath downtown or just people messaging me. I think there's definitely just an interest in that world in general right now. And so I think if I'm able to, depending on like what my life even looks like at that point, I think I would definitely still try to maybe incorporate it more into my music, or just have it be more of an educational thing for people, like learning about different frequencies and the healing aspects of music and these instruments that have been used for years. I think I would definitely still try to incorporate it for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like that is, at least for you, the way to, because I do believe to a certain extent that like engaging on social media, whatever social media platform is the one right now, or at the very least of the ones that are out, the one that you connect with the most, it's still a good idea in this day and age to engage with it.
Yeah.
Not in a faux way, like, oh, everyone's doing this, so you should be doing this. But like, you should find that thing that it's like, I am okay with posting this.
Right. Yeah.
Every day, or like whatever your ideal consistency is. Like, I do like engaging on this. It just might not be, and this goes back kind of like to the beginning of our conversation. It might not be for us, for it to be like this performative, like extroverted, like, hey, look at me and my talent. Like, that's just, I don't think the way that we go about it. Because I remember one of my mentors, she was talking to me and my friend Jacob about like, well, this was like a long time ago, but she's like, oh, well, you know, you guys should be vlogging. Like, you guys are making all these movies, you're doing all this stuff, like, you should be vlogging it and putting it online. Like, people want to see like you guys doing this. And we both kind of look at each other like, vlogging? Like, we're writer directors. You know, like, what are you talking about? Yeah. But I do think she was correct to a certain extent. I don't think she knew how to translate it to us being so much younger. But what she was saying was like, yeah, there's all these people like getting engagement online. Like, people like care about them as filmmakers. And I get that, because I've done behind the scenes documentaries for my stuff and like all that's kind of, and because right now I'm not in a place, and especially back then, I wasn't at a place where I was going to make a short film that was like Oscar worthy. It is more about the journey of you doing it and people liking that stuff. Right. Yeah. Rather than like the short film that is like clearly underdeveloped. You know what I mean? Which is fine, because you're only like 19 years old. Exactly. And unless you have all the tools in the world, it's never going to look like something they could watch on Netflix. So it's, if that for you is that, because it's like, oh, well, you haven't put out like a full album yet. You haven't done that, like that project, and I don't even know if you know what it sounds like yet. But until then, it's like, oh, well, she does the crystal clear stuff, and she's a sound healer, and she can sing. When I post that stuff on TikTok, that stuff be taken off when because they're invested in your journey as a person, and I think that's what is also really important. And then if you're able to combine that with the milestones of like, oh, and I dropped an album, and I'm not saying that you should say like you have your Chrxstal Sarah account, your Crystal Clear account, and Crystal Clear blows up, and then you finally come up with an album and you're like, hey, Crystal Clear fans, guess who has a 30-track album? Come support. Because you will get some people will be like, that's not what I'm here for. It's not like they have to combine immediately, but I do think like growing that Crystal Clear audience is important, because when you do come out with that album, organically, a lot of people are eventually, it might not happen overnight, but eventually those people are like, oh my gosh, she has an album and she does all of this, and it also has its own dedicated following. Like, what can't this girl do? Right. And I feel like that happens to a lot of people in a lot of different lanes who like understand what their lane is online, to those managers like who think that that's all it is. Like, yes, we're not saying they shouldn't be doing this, but it's not just to push the music. It's like, I like doing this. This is my thing. This is how I'm growing as a person. And my music career probably sits next to it in some way. And eventually, I'm hoping one day, like the two paths merge, and it's like, how'd she do it all?
That's very true. And I think that's the cool thing about what social media can like allow us to do now. Like, really personally connect with people, really like have these conversations that we wouldn't be able to have otherwise. And like, people can kind of, yeah, like just latch onto your journey or just who you are as a person, which is really cool. And that's why I think as much as I'm kind of annoyed by how much pressure there is now to like prioritize these things, when I do think about some of the opportunities I've had or people I've been able to meet, it's like been through like Twitter or like, Instagram or something. And so, yeah, I definitely am grateful. I just think, you got to just figure out how to do it in a way that feels like authentic for you. So you're not like burning yourself out and are just like, okay, now I just hate this,
Yeah.
So you just got to like find a way to make it work. But
so on that topic, this is a podcast where we ask the hard hitting questions. Not only that, but I'm your older brother. So you have to give me a decent answer.
Okay.
When is the album coming?
The album. When you say album, man, well, I definitely do actually have a lot of music that I've been sitting on for like a while. I will have a project coming out in January. I call it a project.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Like, I don't know if I want to call it an album. I guess like my friends that have produced it will be mad. I'm not calling it an album. But it's
what are you afraid of? Why can't you call it an album? How many tracks is it? Okay, but you don't have to give the entire track list, but is it enough songs where technically it will be more than an EP?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like the numbers, we always kind of like, it's more than 5 songs.
Okay.
I'll say that. I don't know. I think, and this is probably like an individual thing, or like people probably have a lot of opinions about this. But when I think of like an album or like something to call an album, other than like the length of songs, like, okay, you have 10 songs. I kind of really, I see it as like a To Pimp a Butterfly, or like something that really has like, there's like a cohesion. You kind of not even went in maybe with like a specific purpose, but there's something really tying all these songs together. Maybe there's a sound really like tying everything together, or like something. It doesn't feel like just a collection of songs you finished. It could be that, but I actually probably will be dropping a lot of music next year, only because like
that wasn't the question.
When is the album? Okay. Oh, January, there will be a album / project coming out. And then, yeah, honestly, I don't hate the singles train. Like, sometimes I do think, like, if you have a song or 2 songs, just put it out. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think I might be riding the singles and EP train for like a little while longer. Not gonna lie to you. I think I'm in a really annoying but cool place right now, where I'm like I feel like in the beginning when I first started dropping music, I was super like just excited and like, yes, like I'm just making music. Like I made a whole song. I put it out, I feel like I definitely lost that a bit. And I feel like this year, like to the point where like 2021, I was like, I might just quit. Like I don't know. Like, and yeah, everything was kind of getting to me as far as like, okay, this whole.
I mean, 2021 was probably the most trying year for most people.
Yeah, you talked to him like, oh, maybe that was the worst year of my life. I don't know, but it definitely.
Because that was like when we settled into this might be forever. Like 2020 was like we were still in that like 2 weeks to slow the curve, even though it had been a month, 2 months, 3. We thought we were going to be out soon. 2021 was we were sucking like this might be real.
Yeah, for sure. But I definitely hit a point where I wasn't feeling like I was making things I really liked, or there was just a disconnect in like what I was making and what I wanted to make. Or anyway, I feel like I'm more in a mindset now where like I like my first EP I put out, Longings of the Loneliest Girl in the World, that was like 2019. And I feel like for whatever reason the music I'm making like right now feels kind of similar to how I felt back then, like just the entire process.
I feel that I can hear that actually.
Yeah,
I feel like the music you've been coming out with does sound like that. It's just better. Like it just sounds more mature, and not in like a sense that your voice has changed or anything. It just sounds like the production is better, or not necessarily even the production is better. It's just more like optimized. Like I know what I want it to sound like.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing in and of itself, because when I was first making music, it was really just me, like the mic. I was like trying to figure out FL Studio. Like it was very much just like my sound was really my sound. Then you bring in producers, you bring in other people who have their own opinions about things, or you're doing. So you have to really find a way. I feel like I'm just now starting to find a way to really like be vocal and like clear about what I want things to sound like, even if it is someone else producing it. Whereas before that was a bit hard for me. Like I'd come in, be writing to like a beat someone made and like wasn't really connecting with the song or the sound, but still made it sound good. Like it was a good song, but I didn't feel like it was like a Chrxstal Sarah song, you know? And I feel like now I'm starting to find ways to really like make it, just clear to people kind of what I want to hear and things like that. So that was a whole process in and of itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of starting to come back to that. So maybe there'll be like an album on the horizon.
It sounds like an album is on the horizon.
On the horizon, you know.
As someone, and I want to ask you one more question after this, but as someone who just listens to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of music. Like I have a very itchy ear, and I can't just listen to one thing forever. Not in the sense of like when I hear a song that I really like it'll be on repeat. Like I do that. But I can't be like, it's been 3 months and I'm still listening to like the same album. Like I have to be listening to different genres, different people, different old projects, new projects. Like I listen to a lot of new music. And I think like a lot of times when people get my age, they start to just sink into like, well, I've been listening to this for years.
Just read an article about that. Like people hit 30 or 31 and then they kind of, the music discovery process for them
just like
over, like they're like, oh, I'll just keep listening.
And that blows my mind because I love Kid Cudi. I can't listen to Kid Cudi all the time. Like I got to listen to something else.
Yeah.
And so my music discovery is really hungry, but I also think that like I might, because I like movies so much and a lot of my writing process and coming up with scenes and stuff happens via music. Like it's almost like some borderline synesthesia type thing where I have to, like, I can have an idea for something. It looks like one thing and I'll listen to a song and it has a totally different tone. I'm like, oh, I should probably tackle it this way. So I have to constantly be listening to new music, especially when I'm in a rut writing where it's like, I guess I just have to listen to some more music because right now I can't. It's not working.
That's interesting because actually in a lot of studios there'll be like movies playing. Like I don't know if the artist or whoever's coming in, they're like, "Oh, this is the vibe we're going."
No, I think they're like very like from a brain standpoint tied together. It's like people can see sounds and people can like affiliate visuals with like, oh, this sound, that visual like sounds like this and vice versa. I think I'm only one way. I can't like make images sound like anything. At least I don't know yet, but definitely like translating sound into images. I think I'm pretty good at. And so for me, like albums are how I relate to artists. And that's why like I'm waiting for your album instead of a bunch of singles like you said, the waterfall singles, because I don't know what those mean. If anything, they annoy me. Like when I see like new so-and-so and I click on it's like one song or like the same song. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm trying to like consume you as an artist, see where you're at. And I feel like I'm being teased by an algorithm. And it's why it frustrates me. That's why I'm like, dude, just work on an album. And I know there's like different buckets because I definitely have like the ones that I like the most is like this like concept albums, there's like theme albums, and then a collection of songs. It's like we just did this. And so most of the time collection of songs, in my opinion, are just like they're tied together by genre. Like, we made a bunch of songs, they're in this genre, like here you go, like a house album. You know what I mean? Like I had my pad and I just like did beep boops for like a summer and like here it is. Or something like serious concept like a To Pimp a Butterfly where it's like this man had he woke up with an idea one day and was like, I'm making songs on this idea. I'm trying to like put an image in your head and yada yada. Or it's like a plastic beach. It's like it's a theme, like like a big floating island of trash. That's kind of like what we were thinking when we came up with all these songs. But they're not necessarily tied together sonically all the way. Like, I mean, that's Gorillaz, so it's a kind of an interesting bag. They're always doing like weird stuff, but in general, like theme albums where it's like, I just kind of want you to think of this while you listen to all of this stuff. It sounds like you're just very tied to like an album is a concept. And it's not like it might just be your summer. It was me, my computer or my guitar or whatever, and it was like this summer. And it's like, that's an album. And it shows where you're at. Like, I can listen to be like, oh, that was her summer. Is it good? Is it bad? Like, for me, as a music listener who listens to a ton of music, I rarely like put music as good or bad. Is it mainstream or is it from the artist? The more mainstream it is, the more I'm like, okay. You can miss me with that. Like, I know what mainstream sounds like. Yeah. The more it sounds like the artist, the more I'm like, okay, I mean, it's not for me, but I get what you were doing.
Right. Like, this sounds like you really, this is really you. No, yeah. I mean, well, this collection of songs
still won't do it.
Was something that honestly is like almost maybe 3. I mean, these are songs that are, some songs are like 2019, 2020. These are all songs that I worked on with 2-3 other producers, artist friends of mine. And we kind of just cleaned them all up over the summer. And we're kind of like, we should just put this out. So yeah.
Well, you should, I mean, it could be an album. It does sound like, it very much sounds like a collection of songs. But what you might need to do is like, either with your producers or with some friends or even just by yourself, let's like put them all together in the order that you think, because it would be your project.
Yeah.
In the order that you think.
Yeah.
And then you probably need to do some drugs and just listen to them and like see if you get an image.
No, yeah.
And then it might be like a theme or like there might be something there.
Yeah. We had 2 or 3 sessions like that, actually, just like listening to all the songs once they were like mixed, mastered, and like kind of like, okay, where should this go? Where should that go? And we did find some like, you know, like, okay, there's like
some through lines,
there's a flow, there's kind of like a theme. And so, yeah, I think I'm excited only because, I've been sitting on some of these songs for like a while. And it definitely does feel like the end of 2020, me and my friends went to Joshua Tree and just like worked on a bunch of music. And a lot of it is from that. So it feels like just like a overall like good time, just like me and my friends making music. So yeah, it's gonna be fun to put out for sure. But yeah, I guess it kind of sounds like
it sounded like an album in the morning.
It sounds like an album, you know. But yeah, I guess if you listen to it, you know, just let me know. You think it sounds like an album? We'll see. You know?
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I as a lover of music, someone who's probably never gonna make music again. Well, I won't say that never make music again.
Yeah, you were the first one to make a song on GarageBand.
Well, yeah, but that was all like
remember.
That was all for fun, you know. That was like, you know, I mean, I guess all music is for fun, but yeah, I mean, I've always been a creative person, but I'm like you, I'm very introverted. Like, I just like the process of creating. Yeah, I don't need to like necessary. I'll say for money, obviously. I'll try to get paid. Right. But I don't need to put everything in front of a million people. Like, some things can be for like 10, 20, 1,000 people, and I'll be fine. Like, it's just like, okay, that was my project and I worked on it. Now I'm ready to do the next thing. I think the biggest thing for artists that like is a constipation that like prevents you from creating, because it's like this, either this project has to be the best because I have to perform it, and you get all performative, like it has to look this way, it has to be this, I have to have an ice rink at Coachella, otherwise I can't do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you get all in your head about that, and then artists get addicted to drugs and all this kind of stuff because they can't like get stuff out because it's so performative. Yeah. Or it's the opposite, where it's like, you know, it's just this perfectionist spirit of like, it just has to be perfect all the time. And if it's not perfect, then, you know, it's not worth putting out, or like no one will watch it and yada, yada. It's like, if you don't focus on that, if you just focus on iterating and being creative and enjoying the process, which now we're at a time where like finally all that stuff is valuable. First, it wasn't valuable. You just had to do it on your own and hate yourself and sleep in your car until someone with the keys of the kingdom was like, hey kid, let's make your dreams come true. And it's like, no, it's all valuable. And if you can keep on that track and some people are going to realize, hey, I actually don't like doing this. I don't like iterating. I just wanted to do this one project, and I had this grand vision of what it was going to look like. Yeah. And I did it, and now I don't have anything else, or I never got to do it. And it's like, maybe I could have been an artist. It's like, no, you never really were. You just you were just trying to do this one thing and thought it would get you this lifestyle that would make you creative. It's like, nah, just be creative, be iterative, work on what you want to work on. And like, if that's truly fun, we're finally in an era where like, hopefully you can make some money.
You know
what I mean?
That's a big part of it, the money, you know, and that's where I feel like all that scarcity mindset really comes from, you know, like feeling like you have to do it this way or do that, or you won't get another chance and all that. Just, you know, really trying to lose that mentality for sure. But
well, cool. We've hit our hour. But I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think it was something that I was looking forward to having. I'm also like, I'm just not a very performative person, as wild as that sounds, since I've like acted in my movies and written and directed and produced all of them, and I'm doing a podcast. But yeah, I like this. I like this platform as a place where I can have like intelligent, actual conversations with people, because I just can't do them sometimes in real life. Like I just want to sit there. I don't have time to be like talking to people about their emotions all the time. But when there's lights and a camera, I'm like, okay, but it's all moving towards something. That's cool.
And now you know what I mean? That, you know, I want to be a Disney star. Maybe I still do want to. I should be a Disney star. I could be a mom on one of the Disney shows now.
Hey, I mean, like I said, Hollywood doesn't know it. It's got Raven still doing it again.
Yeah.
I don't know. But thank you for coming on. I have one final thing to ask of you to close us out. I need you to look into your camera and you're going to outro us essentially. So you're just going to be like, my name is whatever. Your AKAs, my name is whatever. And this has been dope.
Okay.
However you want to say it.
My name is Chrxstal Sarah and this has been dope.
Oh, snap. I got to put that in the group chat.